Hello guys. Let's turn on cameras on. Hi Krati.
Hello, sir.
Hey Ramandeep. Hi Ujwal. Hi Shiva. Hi
Yes, sir.
Venus.
Hi, sir.
Ramandeep turned on his camera and we turned it off.
Hello, sir.
Let's get our cameras on. Hi again, Sahitya. Hi Anushka. So your daughter uses the same laptop, is it?
Yeah, I mean, every time she is super aware of these changing names, I am like struggling to find it every time. So,
Hi Pooja.
Hi, Prasad.
You know, this whole thing is a marketing strategy. If you think about how Google won the search wars, one of the main things that it did compared to other search engines, because every search engine basically said who has more money to spend, right? And they said, of course, the parents, because they have a lot more free money. So everybody targeted the parents for advertising, marketing, value generation, and all that. What Google did was they said, no, we're going to focus on the kids because it's the kids who come back from college that are going to change the default settings. And so invariably, whenever we would do research in people's houses and say, hey, what search engine do you use? I was like, we use Google. Sorry, they said we use Yahoo. And like, okay. So then we go use their, look at their browser settings and all that. It's like Google. And like, what are you doing? Like, yeah, we are doing Yahoo on Google. So that's what it is. So that's the same thing. It's like you're Xeroxing with a Canon machine. So that was the interesting mindset. So kids actually change a lot of our settings, not, and influence how we use products a lot.
Prasad, the funny thing happened for a lot of times is I was not aware of there was like an settings which is like adding eyebrows, right? So it was like for a lot of time I was just looking at camera and doing something wrong, but I was just looking at my mirror. And then in a professional meeting, I had this sort of like an artificial eyebrow, like a thick eyebrow, and I was literally trying to find it for a long time, and then finally did that. Every time there was an effect which is on, which is so hidden inside that. So I was like, and I thought my eyebrows grew suddenly.
Awesome. So, hey Aruna, hey Vasudha, that's not, have you met before? Okay, so you look very familiar. So I was wondering, maybe you had the same situation as Varun with a different name. So guys, if you can turn on your cameras, that'd be great. So we can all get started. It's important we see each other. Hi,
Yeah,
Bhaskar.
Prasad,
Hey,
just give me
Pratibha.
5-10 minutes. I'm reaching home, then I'll switch on my camera.
Sure, sure. Hey, Panish. Hey, Parimal. Hi, Shiva. Hey, Kevin. Akash. Ishita. Sai, I think your cameras it's got some weird settings in there. So yeah, hey Ankur, hi Kranti, hey Mega. All right. So for all those of you, so we are going to be streaming live on YouTube today. So for those of you that are watching on YouTube, I just say, follow and subscribe the channel so you're going to get a lot of updates about what's going on. But I think the most important thing that we're going to be learning today is design systems for UX practitioners. So I'm just going to stop the presentation for a second and I want to ask you guys a question. What do you people think are design systems and why are design systems important? Right. Because there's a lot of talk and discussion out there about design systems, and hey, if you know design systems, somehow you're a UX genius or whatever. But I'm really curious about what is the goal of a design system. So you can unmute yourself and speak up, or you can type your answers in. So Nishant says guidelines. So do you want to explain a little bit more, Nishant? Okay. So while Nishant is figuring it out, scalability. Ishita, you want to explain what scalability is?
Yeah, sure. So scalability, it's a one of the reason people build this design system so that we can look for the future components, or maybe it can be a visual language in terms of scalability.
Got it. So it's essentially to create a library of components so that in the future, other people can use it and you can scale up your product. Is that right? Go ahead, Sai.
True.
I would say it's like a standardized like components that can be like reused, and we don't waste time like creating them again and again. So yeah, that's my answer.
Got it. Got it. So I'm going to start off with two polls so we can, so I can get an understanding of who the audience is. And then I'll ask you the same question again. So the first poll that I have, I'm going to ask is how many years of experience do you have? So Rajiv, if you can launch that poll, that'd be great. Yeah. So just answer this. I'm very curious about how many years of experience you have working as a designer specifically. So I think, Rajiv, you need to make me a co-host so that I can see the responses. All right. So let's end the poll here. So looks like a little over about 60% exactly have at least 1 year of experience. We have people with 15 plus, 9+ years of experience, but majority of us here have at least 1 year of experience. And there is about 40% of the folks that have less than a year of experience. Cool. So now let me ask you a second question, okay? What of these things do you see when you're working, okay? So you will see a list of behaviors, and I'm very curious how many of those behaviors you have seen, right? And I know it's a multiple choice, it's a single choice answer, so select the one that you have seen the most. And actually we have designed this survey wrong, Rajiv, because we should have another choice that says none. But we are kind of confident that everybody is kind of gone through this. So but if you want to say none, just abstain from the answering, and then you can just type in none in your text box. So I at least have an answer of how many people would say none of these happened to you. Awesome, Ramandeep. You are in heaven. Hey, Praneeth, long time no see.
Hi, sir.
Hey, Sandal, awesome, no nuns. Good. Oh, Vinay, nice. Hariharan, we have quite a few nuns. That's good. Very nice. Shruti, Hariharan, Vinay, Nirupama, Saddal, Ramandeep. Good job, yaar. You guys are in like nice, sweet places. Mamta. Okay. So does that mean, Nishant, you say I'm the only designer in the organization, no mentor, no senior, no colleague. So does that mean you don't know what is happening, or do you have some of these situations happening to you as well? Satyam, I'm not sure what you mean when you say voice. Okay, are you guys able to hear me fine? Yes, okay.
Yes.
Good. All right. So I think we've got about 62% of the folks who have kind of responded. And, I would assume that the remaining 40% don't have any problems. Let's give credit to the, let's be a little bit giving. But really 60% of folks do have a set of challenges that you face in your work, right? Which is you don't feel you have control over the work that you do. What work should you do? When should you do it? How should you do it? Is it last minute work? Somebody comes and says, okay, get this job done, kal ko launch karna hai, right? Or, you may have an opinion, but people say, no, this is how it's been decided. Let's just execute with this.
You've plugged into Nirvana.
Who is that? Okay. So, then the next one is basically like, you think you'll switch, think you'll change your jobs and hopefully it'll get better. And I don't know, we got two of the same. You think you will switch your job and things will get better. Okay, this is weird, Rajiv. So, and then you think nobody follows the process. And interestingly enough, this is the common feedback that I've heard for pretty much everybody. These are the responses that we have here, right? Pretty much everybody says this. In fact, every interview that I've done where people have wanted to move to a new job, they say, my current job does not support me. It doesn't have the appropriate, process. Nobody listens to me. So there are a lot of interesting challenges. Now, what if I told you that design systems is the way you change that, right? Now, this is what I mean by there's a practical, there's a tactical goal that you have to achieve through design systems, and there's a strategic goal that you achieve through design systems. Okay, so the tactical goal that you achieve through design systems, a tactical means short term, right? The short term goal that you achieve through design systems is basically saying that you are, these are the components, this is how it's going to be done, this is what's going to happen, and then everybody executes on it. That's a short-term goal. The long-term goal is really, how do you get credibility in an organization? As a designer, you might do great design system, but if your career is not moving, has it worked for you? I mean, you've worked hard, but has it made an impact on your salary or on your career or anything? So that's what I mean by the practicalities and the long-term strategic thinking when you start thinking about design systems, right? So design systems is a way for you to get buy-in between your four biggest, stakeholders, right? Who are the stakeholders that you get buy-in from? Who are the people that most of you work with? You work with engineers. So obviously, the biggest friction point for most designers is engineering, because engineering says, this guy does not design practical designs. Right. So there is a friction point between engineering and design, and ultimately, whose voice get heard is most likely the engineering team will get its voice heard. Okay. The second team that you will need to get buy-in from is your product managers, people who are managing the process. Right. Now, they also are very close to the business goals. And so in some ways, you have to kind of figure it out. Now, the third aspect that you think about is from the business leadership. Now, the lucky few of you that work directly with business leaderships, you cannot believe how lucky you are, right? Now, out in the industry, majority of the time, the business leadership primarily looks at design as a graphic design function where you're saying, okay, does it look good or not? Okay, they're not focusing on whether it's working well or the design is done properly or not. And so that is where, when you're looked at as a graphic designer, at the best, right? You can convince them that, you can't even have discussions about what the flow should be, how the system should be. Rather, you're talking about how it should look, and that's where your conversation begins and ends. And so you need to create opportunities where you're convincing your business leadership that you have an equivalent stake in the game. Okay, and that is what design systems does. So I'm going to show you today what a good design system looks like. But at the same time, that is not important. Doing a good design system is only half the game. It only allows you to bring scalability into what you're doing. But the other half of the game is to play the game, the politics of it, right? How do you get your team together? How do you arrange them in such a way that you are executing in alignment, and you are an equal stakeholder in the product development process. Okay, so there are two parts to it, and that's what I'm going to be talking about. So let's start the presentation and let's get going. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so quickly about Collej, we are an industry consortium. So our goal is to share the state-of-art industry knowledge and best practices. It's also to help you build relationships amongst yourself. So you build a vibrant design community, and this has always happened. Like, there's been times when somebody says, I'm looking for a job. Another one of our members helps you get your job. There's people that are in here to kind of help you clarify your doubt, especially in situations where you're the only designer, you have a support system within the community. So ultimately, we are a vibrant design community who are out here to help each other. And the core goal, the core philosophy that we all follow is what you give is what you get. Giving is like, turning on your camera, contributing to somebody else's success. And so eventually it all comes back to you. And for us personally, it is all about hiring rockstar design talent for my company, as well as the companies that we work with. So let's go on to the next slide. So we do a number of different initiatives to help you guys. The first one is we have a lot of free resources. If you in fact, on Medium, we just published about 32 different articles. So you can literally go on there. And these are like, what we've said is, people think about what should I do to start becoming a designer. This is for the 40% of you that are just starting off in your careers. What should you know? We have basically categorized all the content that you need to know. Okay. And literally, there is no rocket science to it. You just learn those. There are, I think, 32 topics. And out of those 32 topics too, depending on what specialization you want to go into, you can, they're basically a subset of topics that you need to learn. And all of that content is available free of cost for you, so you can go in, read that. We also have YouTube videos. We're in the process of putting all of these classes on YouTube as well. So you have access to all of this. We also do a lot of events for designers as well as people who are just starting off. Then we have something called a Portfolio Builder series. We are doing a beta test of that, where after every workshop, we give you a project, and then you kind of go do that project, you get feedback, and then you kind of start building up your portfolio, so that when you get into your next job or you're starting to apply, these portfolio becomes a very strong component of your job search. And then for we do something also called a training program. Now, we only take 20 people a year, but these are usually supported by companies. So 2/3 of the fees is paid by the companies, 1/3 is paid by the student themselves. So that's why we limit it to only 20, because it depends on how many people the company is looking for. And there's also an interview process. So that's where we do these intensive training programs for people to kind of get hired within our ecosystem. So that's it. Let's go on the next slide. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take it towards the end. But yeah, so as far as this workshop is concerned, the rules are fairly simple. It's a safe environment. There is no stupid question. The first time you ask the question, maybe you might feel stupid, but after that, you will never have to ask that question, because you know something that nobody else knows. So my advice is, do not worry about what somebody else is going to think. If you have a question, ask it. That's the best way to kind of become smarter. The other one I would say is participate and contribute actively. This is a collaborative project, right? So essentially what that means is we all contribute. You have an idea, you have a way of thinking, please share it, because, it's always good to kind of talk about it, discuss these new, ideas and thoughts. All right. Be kind and courteous to everybody, respect each other, and respect your privacy, respect other people's privacy. Wherever possible, keep your cameras on, because this is the best way I see your faces. And if I see like, hey, you have a question mark, you're not understanding, it tells me to stop for a bit and then kind of clarify. Okay. So, wherever possible, turn on your cameras. I understand some of you might not be able to do it, but that's the best way to do it. And most importantly, if you believe that this workshop is valuable to you, please spread the word, because this helps us get more members into our community and therefore enriches our ecosystem as well. So let's go on to the next slide. Okay. So again, this is a little bit of a joke. These kinds of memes are fairly common, but the idea here is every designer thinks they're holding up the mountain, but really most other people do not actually understand the intricacies and the details of what you do, right? So part of the challenge is how do you get those details and those intricacies communicated to everybody? Let's go on to the next slide. All right. So, these are the most common kinds of situations that you would see in your work. Somebody basically comes in and says, hey, I'm going to micromanage your work. And literally, somebody would be coming in saying, I need something by 5 p.m. or it's not centered. Can you move it a little bit to the left or the right? There's people that, funnily enough, I've seen product manager boot camps that teach user testing. Right? They call it user acceptance testing. There's a lot of this kind of overlaps that are happening where different disciplines are trying to teach design to their folks, and so everybody thinks they can get their job done. At the end of the day, one of the most common philosophy things that if we even believe as designers, we believe that hey, just Photoshop is going to get the job done, or Adobe XD or whatever your tool is. That's just knowing that makes you a designer. And so there's a lot of these kinds of interesting feedback that everybody sees. Let's go on to the next slide. Right. So let's go to the next slide. So we've already asked this question. Yeah. So majority of the times, and this is something that I've seen in pretty much my whole professional life, not just working in India, but working in the US and, interviewing a lot of people, discussing and all that. And the core thing that I see here is, majority of the people do not feel that they have control over what they do. So go ahead, Praveen, you have a question?
No, sir. No question.
Okay, you raised your hand, that's why. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So the main thing that you have to think about as far as design systems is concerned is understanding how to influence people, right? So everything that you do is about influencing people and getting people to understand the complexity of your job and kind of giving you the freedom to do what you need to do as a professional. Let's go on to the next slide. Okay. So generally, when you're working in a product team, when you're working to launch a product or ship a product, this is the team environment that everybody's working in. Okay, there's you are coordinating with other designers, because potentially there might be 3 or 4 other designers who are also collaborating with you. Then you're working with an engineering team. The engineering guy basically says, don't make me duplicate my work. That is the biggest complaint that the engineering guy has, is don't make me duplicate my work. Or they might also say, like, your work is not practical. So that is the most common feedback. Or they'll say, yeah, I don't have the time to do it, so I just did something else. So that there's also that delta between what you have imagined and what you have designed and what somebody else is shipping. Then you have a product manager that you're working in. The product manager primarily cares about when are you going to deliver, right? They don't necessarily care about how to what you're doing or whether it's going to be user problem or not, because the product manager is incentivized. Their salaries, their bonuses are all given for shipping a product, right? Even if it's wrong, that's fine, because the way you design on internet is you ship a product, you can fix it and you can relaunch it. So it's not a big deal. It's not like doing a Windows release where you do Windows and then you have a bug and then you go fix that bug and relaunch it to everyone. So that's not how it works. So internet is a lot faster shipping. You ship, you make mistakes, you correct them, you ship it again. It's not a big deal. So that's the way the internet works. So, and then you have the design team that is collaborating with you, where everybody says, I don't have time. Nobody listens to me. So we are all running, we are all rushing. I've been told to do 50 screens. In fact, I know of this really good designer. He's a really good, visual designer. I met him while he was working with a company that we were consulting with. And literally this guy, he was doing really good work. And then he suddenly resigned and he left, and we didn't know why he resigned and he left. And then, we were shown his work after this person left, and we were shocked. And the reason we were shocked was this guy did 200 screens in 1 month, right? And then the product manager basically said, yeah, this guy did 200 screens. Most of the product is done. You just have to do like little fixes and you'll get it done. We're like, really? You did 200 screens. That's no wonder the guy left, because you were torturing him with screens every day, right? Now, the thing that we did when we went in and we looked at it was literally the same job could have been done in about 15 screens. And so, what could have been done strategically, this guy was, tactically tortured, and then he was, until this person left. But the main thing that I want you to understand is that is what happens in every design team, is everybody is so busy that nobody is actually getting the time to think about strategy. Okay. So when you do anything, you need to be thinking from 3 different perspectives or 4 different perspectives, because there's a 4th team that is missing that you do not see on a regular basis. Let's go on to the next slide. The 4th team here is the business leadership, right? The business leadership is basically looking at revenue. They're looking at the money. But the interesting thing is, most designers do not actually get to sit in these conversations. You might talk to them at a party, or you might talk to them on a one-on-one basis or whatever. But business leaders actually talk to product managers and engineers on a more regular basis than they talk with designers, right? Which is the unfortunate truth, right? So the business leader is primarily looking, what value are you generating? And so which teams in their mind generate the most amount of value, right? The guy that ships the product and the guy that builds the product, not the guy that makes the product look good, right? And so that is where the problem is. So when you are thinking about changing your work environment, you need to think about it from this perspective. Let's go on to the next slide. Right? This is how you need to be thinking about it, right? So you are an equal partner in this whole game, where business leadership is talking to you, engineering as well as product, and then you have a dotted line communication with design team, where in the back end, you and the design team know how to play your game, okay? And all of you together are playing a strategy that kind of brings everybody into line, okay? This is the way that you need to be working in terms of your organizational strategy. So I'm not sure, somebody just raised their hand. I cannot pronounce their name. So Mustkim, do you have a question? No. Okay. Let's go on to the next slide. Okay. So the question is, how do you manage these expectations? So let's go on to the next slide. Okay. So I'm going to ask you a question. This is a design system that we've seen. Okay. Now, would this solve the problem or not? So and it's a quick poll, yes or no. So go ahead. And then if it's yes, why? If it's no, why? So I'd be very curious to just hear from you. So iPhone raised their hand. Go ahead, iPhone.
Sorry, sir. I actually mistakenly got auto-detected.
No
Actually,
worries.
this design system looks like Shopify design system.
Huh.
And like this is like base of the product which they're gonna build. This won't solve a problem, but this can help solving a problem.
Okay. So the
And
problem here is you're saying these are components, or you're creating a design system for the purpose of communicating and
the
standardizing your
consistency of the application.
components.
Yeah,
right?
these components may help in consistency of the screens,
Huh.
but not the whole problem solving depends on the design system.
Okay, what problem would this not solve?
Users mentality, like these are the roots of the screens, like color variants, buttons, everything is clear. But thinking from user perspective, how they interact with the application matters a lot.
Okay. So it does not, so would it be fair to say that it does not have an understanding of the context in which users would use this product?
Yes.
Okay, that's a good one. I would buy that. So by the way, what's your name, dude?
My name is Vijay Raj.
Okay.
And I'm working as an UI UX designer lead.
Awesome. Thanks, Vijay. Go ahead, Pooja.
Completely solve the problem, and like there is no, I mean that this is not a deep design system, like interaction of the components is not mentioned, and like they have shown the typography, but the what kind of typography we are using, like what we are using for headings or subheadings or body copy, so all those things are not mentioned here, so we don't know context here basically.
Right. So this is the second problem, right? So Vijay's first problem is he doesn't understand the context of the user. But the second problem is you do not know which text to use when. So if an engineering team got this, they don't know which one to use for what, right? So if your 5 engineers are working on your code, and generally that's a ratio, a healthy ratio is 1 designer to 5 engineers. In India, it's a 1:20 kind of a ratio. So that means 20 engineers are working on your design, and everybody's probably working on a different component. Everybody's using different text for the same element. Now imagine that, right? Or the same element is used for different kinds of presentation. So that's even worse, right? So that is also a huge problem that you're going to get. Okay, awesome. Anybody else? I know Parimal or somebody else raised their hand as well.
Yes, Prasad.
Yeah, go ahead.
So there is no documentation around it, right? I mean, there are no guidelines when to use which component. These are just design components. I mean, there has to be a coded component. If it is a design system, it has to be a coded component, not just a Figma, whatever, Figma component or sketch component.
Yeah, and this is actually a very interesting component. So which is a direct, what you're saying is the other side of what Pooja mentioned. Is Pooja talked about the problem, you're talking about the solution, right? So it's two sides of the same coin. So what you're talking about is every component needs to have guidelines, right? So go ahead, Punish. You're on mute or can't hear you. Punish, you want to unmute yourself? Yeah. So Ishita, when you say this is a very shallow presentation of the components, I'm assuming you mean by, it's just, you just see different components and you don't necessarily see how they're interacting or how they build together. And I think that's right. But I think there's 2 pieces of feedback for you, right? The way you talk about design needs to be a little bit more specific, because if I wasn't a designer, I wouldn't know what you're talking about. So be a little bit more specific, but I think your point is correct, which is it's a fairly, skin deep kind of a presentation of all the different atomic elements. Go ahead, Pooja.
And I think this is not segregated. It doesn't look like segregated well, so that whenever we are actually working on design, we cannot map any of the components or, like, I hope I'm making it clear. I'm not sure.
I'm not understanding the word segregation. What do you mean by segregation?
Like when we make a design system, we make a different frames. So like for but there is a different frame for for images, there is a different frame, so that we can see, like if we see it from the tool point of view, then it is it's listed well in asset panel, and we can start using those components.
Okay.
We have mentioned if we have mentioned any interaction, those components while prototyping, we can show it works that way, and it can map in the big design file.
I kind of get it. I think a way to kind of think about this is, I think this is not readable, right? It's not readable because if you're looking from an engineering perspective, how does the engineer think about it, right? The engineer is thinking about it as if you're writing CSS or whatever, you're building a component, you're basically looking at your atoms, then you're pulling those atoms together to build a molecule, then you're pulling those molecules together to build a compound, right? So when you think about from an engineering perspective, you will look at elements. These elements start coming together to form, different kinds of components. These components come together to form a layout, and different layouts or different cards, or let's say instead of a layout, I'd say a card, different cards come together to form a page, right? So there are these elements, and so the segregation, when you're thinking about it, have to be segregated in a way that the engineer can use.
Yeah, like making a set of components will show different states of the components. Like here they have shown patterns, but there is no set as such. Where the engineer can understand that, okay, these are the different states which we are showing for the button, for example.
Exactly. Perfect. And that's almost like, you've done the work, but, it's like, you're speaking a language that the engineers do not understand. So they have to now interpret what you're saying. And anytime there's interpretation, there is scope for errors. And there is scope for complaints that come in. So awesome. So let's see if there's any other questions. I'll take one more comment and then I'll get going. So go ahead.
Am I audible now?
Yes, Punish, go for it. I was actually going to ask Hari, but go ahead, Punish.
Yes, sure. So like the one thing that I also see that missing here is like the responsive part. Okay, how the components is going to, like what will be the grid system and how the buttons or like and components is going to be there in responsive version, because that's a really important part.
Yeah, and that also is kind of tied to the state that Pooja was talking about, right? So Pooja is talking about what happens in a state where it's empty or it's like a wrong error state or whatever. And now you're thinking about different screen sizes, because those are the practicalities. Like, you know, if you look, in fact, there's a one website that I would recommend to you towards the end. If I do not, if I forget it, remind me. But that one website is like a Bible when you're starting to think about how to design. So it tells you, gives you all the statistics of how people access your product. Okay, so you have to think about multiple, sizes. You have to think about multiple form factors, multiple interactions. So those are things that you have to think about. If you're doing it on an Apple Watch, you may not be clicking on something, right? So, or versus if you're looking on a tablet versus if you're looking at an AR, VR kind of an application, these games are different. So you have to be thinking about different form factors and different interactions as well. So this is really awesome, really good point. So let's go on to the next slide. Right. So when you're thinking about communicating, right? So whenever you do any style guide or any design system, you have to achieve these 4 goals, right? These 4 goals are non-negotiable. Okay. So out of these 4 goals, the first 2, I would say any guy who comes out of a college, anybody with less than a year of experience, I would say this is mandatory. How to communicate with fellow designers and how to communicate with the engineering team. These 2 components are mandatory for anybody that has got less than a year of experience, right? People who have at least a year of experience, now they're kind of getting senior in their understanding. Now they need to understand how to communicate with product management and how to communicate with leadership. Okay. So these are the 4 goals that you have to think about as you're doing your design system. So finally, when you're doing design for designers, you need to think how to build consensus, because designers by themselves, everybody has an opinion. Right? I mean, it's natural to have an opinion. You're paid to have an opinion. But when everybody has an opinion and nobody is agreeing, what happens? You're going to have a variation, right? So how do you get an opinion? If I come to you as designers and I tell you like, okay, Ujjwal, and I see you only on my camera, so like, I'm going to take your name, but, Ujjwal, you are going to do this kind of a component. You don't have any choice, right? Now, you might agree with me now, but tomorrow, let's say a special use case comes where you need to break the rule. Now you're like, okay, Prasad told me to do this, but I have this. What do I do? Break the rule, right? I don't have a choice. And so that's invariably, that is what happens in product teams. It's like designers who are not aligned to each other will go out and in the end, they are fighting amongst yourselves, right? And when we fight amongst ourselves, our value in a team reduces. Okay. And so this is where the only way to convince another designer is to understand the intention. Are we agreed that this is the intention of design? So if Ujjwal and I are agreed that the intention of design is the same, then tomorrow if Ujjwal has a new design component, he will come back to me and say, Prasad, I know that this is the intention that we agreed on, not that you told me to do. This is the intention we agreed on, but I have this component. Do you think this will work? Right? We will have a conversation of equals. Okay, so with designers, the way to communicate with designers is to communicate the intention. Okay, then the second part, when you communicate with the engineering teams, how do you communicate? So engineering teams mein kya hota hai? The most common complaint is the designer does not know what they're doing. They don't know engineering, right? My point is designers should not know engineering. I mean, I should know enough to be dangerous, but I should not be coding, right? It's your job to code. So the core goal that is there is how to hold engineering accountable and how to hold design accountable. Both of us have to be held accountable, right? Engineers are trying to hold designers accountable, but designers are unable to hold the engineers accountable. So that is the game that has to be played here, right? So we need to have a handoff. If we have to hold each other accountable, we need to have a handoff, right? Where there is zero ambiguity in what you're giving to the engineer, right? Then the key metric that you need to define your success by is saying, reduce the follow-up. So if an engineering guy is coming back to you and saying, should I do A or should I do B, right? That should not be necessary, right? If you have a follow-up, there's something wrong in your design system. You have to go fix your design system, okay? So this is the core thing that every fresher or anybody with less than a year of experience should know, okay? Now, the next component, and generally people who are freshers will not be expected to start a design system. Somebody else would have done a design system. You're just following it, but you're understanding why they've set the design system that way, or maybe you're contributing to the design system. Okay. So that is what you're expected to do when you're starting off. But once you have at least a year of experience, this is where now you want to be spreading your wings. So when you're doing design systems, you need to be able to communicate like, okay, if you do component A, this is the engineering effort for you. This is the amount of time you have to put. This is the amount of revenue it will impact, right? These are the kinds of conversations you need to be having with your product manager, right? So if you say, listen, I'm going to do 4 different variations of this. Now, if your engineering has to do that, you're going to take 4x the time. So I want to reduce your launch time by 4x. Okay. So that is where your product manager is saying, wow, this guy is going to reduce my launch time. Good. I like this. Right? Or is saying, okay, by doing this, you're going to reduce your capital expenditure because you do not need so many servers to transfer the data, right? Oh, okay, I get it. I understand your value. Okay. So that is the kind of communication that you need to have with the product management, right? And with the business leadership, you need to think about how to be noticed, right? So if you are not busy doing the UI stuff, that is when you are busy doing strategy. That's when business leadership notices you. Okay, so your design, your design, your document should be done in such a way that it is reducing your effort, your day-to-day effort in doing work, right? Let's say engineering a product says we have to do a new page. Okay, literally all you should do is drag and drop 5 components, do the new page and send it out. It should not take you more than an hour. That is the game you need to be playing. Okay, if you're doing that, then you have the rest of the time to talk to your leadership, your business leadership, and talk about the strategy of it. Okay. So if you're, this is a very simple, this is an anatomy, like, I don't know how many of you have gone for military selection, but there is a task that says, it's a group task where you go in, you're given a task and you get to select 3 other people. Okay. You select the 3 other people to come and do the job and they're observing how you're giving commands. Okay. If you are doing everything on the ground, you're not officer-like material. Right? Because if you're digging ditches, you're not leading the team. Okay, that's the same principle that comes here. So do not dig. Exactly, Deepak. It's a command task. So if you're digging ditches, you're not commanding the team. So that is exactly what comes to business leadership. Do not dig ditches. Okay, show the strategy, make it scalable, and then you have time to deal with your leaders. Okay, that is the game you need to play. Everybody clear on this? Just type in yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions or thoughts at this point? I'm happy to answer. Okay. And a lot of what I'm teaching is what is called pragmatic UX, right? So pragmatic UX is the practically, how do you do it? And the goal of pragmatic UX is how to make organizations design-centric. That means designers have to be a very powerful entity within, or a role within the company, right? If design is powerful, then you're making your company design-centric. And so the way you become powerful is by following these pragmatic UX philosophies. Go ahead, Hari. You have a question. We can't hear you, Hari. No, you're not audible. Nope. You may want to just type in your question. All right, cool. So let's go on to the next slide. Okay, so what we're going to do today is this. It's a 3-day session. So on the first day, we are going to be talking about intent-based communication with fellow designers. How do you get your intention aligned? How do you build consensus? It's a simple 3-step process. And as long as all the designers understand it and they work together, you win half the game. This is half the game, literally, right? Then the next part is how do you do outcome-oriented communication with engineers, which we'll talk about tomorrow. Okay, which is how do you hand off the design to engineering without any ambiguity? How do you reduce your follow-ups, right? So that is it's basically how do you create your design system. Okay, so what I'm going to do also today is I'm going to talk about, if we have some time, I'll share a gold standard that we had about 3 or 4 years ago, which is still a really good document for all of you, so that you understand the mechanics. I don't want to focus on the mechanics too much. I want to focus on the thinking, because the thinking is what is going to get you your career. Okay, so I will also today talk about the gold standard. I will share it very quickly. We'll talk about it, but we can go from there. And then on day 3 is when we talk about strategic communication with product management and business leaders, right? It is how do you connect your outcomes to the, how do you connect your design decisions to the business outcomes? Okay, if you're able to do that as part of your design systems, now you won the game. You don't have to worry about anything else. Okay, so let's go on to the next slide. Right, and one of the things that I'm going to do, that we do as part of all of our workshops, is we give homeworks at the end of every day. Right, I strongly encourage you to do your homework and kind of submit your work. Because as you do your homework, you're practicing it. So there is one thing to kind of, it's one thing to kind of see that, Rohit, I muted you because there's a lot of sound coming from the background. That's why I muted you. So, so what happens in the homework is, you're watching me say something which seems completely logical, but when you have to do it on your own, you'll have hundreds of doubts. Okay, and that's why I give these homework, so that you are practicing it and you're having those doubts, so I can clear it the next day for you. Okay, so for those of you that complete your homeworks in all the 3 days, we give you a little certificate that says, good job, you did all your work and we appreciate it. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. Okay, so again, for those of you that are just attending for day 1, I would just recommend, if you want to join for day 2, become a member. So you get access to all of our workshops, all of our challenges, our recruitment events, and our continuous improvement activities as well. So please join up if this makes sense for you. Let's go on to the next slide. Okay, so here's a question for everyone, right? What is the difference between an intention and an outcome? Anybody? What is the difference between an intention and an outcome? Go ahead, Punish.
Yes, sir. So basically the intention is like what we assume the outcome would be. But outcome is the real thing that comes out after the product is launched in the market. Okay, how users respond is basically the outcome, and how we assume the user is going to respond is basically the intention.
You got kind of half of the answer, right? I would not take the intention answer correct, but I'd say outcome is what you see, right? What you finally achieved is the outcome. Okay, cool. So go ahead, Pooja. You have to unmute yourself. You need to be unmuted.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yeah.
So if this question is from the point of view of design system, then the intention should be like, what what is expected out of certain elements, and exactly what the outcome is coming out of that. When we interact, the element interacts with each other, what exactly the outcomes come after we do the design, probably.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Right.
Maybe
so
what we think and what we do is intention, and outcome is exactly.
Not necessarily, right? So think about it this way. So when you are, sending an email, right? Is your intention to send an email or is it to send a reminder? Let's say, somebody has not responded back to you in 3 days, right? So in order to solve that problem, what do? You do some outcomes, right? One outcome the outcome that you want is you want an email back from that person, right? And therefore, the activities that you do is you basically send an email, right? Or you might pick up the phone and call, okay? Or you might get frustrated because maybe you can't just send anything, so you just get frustrated with it. So there's a difference between the intention, the actions you take, and the outcome that you're expecting.
Right.
You understand the difference?
Yeah.
Right. So I think Shilpa said it really well, which is intention is the vision, right? It is what problem you're trying to solve, right? And the outcome is what you want out. What is the end product of that solution, right? So that is the outcome. Okay. I want to solve a problem where, I don't have money when I want to go buy something. Let us say that. Okay. I forgot my wallet, so I want to buy something. So, that is, I don't have. So what is my problem? My problem is I don't have money, right? My intention is to buy something. Right? The actions are what? I could actually go back, get the money. I could probably use a UPI, use my phone or whatever. There's n number of actions that could solve that problem to achieve my intention. Right? So intention is the vision that you want to achieve. Okay. Outcome is what is the final output that you got. Okay. Everybody clear on this? Cool. So now let's go on to the next slide. So go ahead, Vijay, you have a question? Okay, cool. So here's a bunch of designs. So this is the same company, which is Xfinity. Okay. So what do you notice in this design? Go ahead, Harshal.
So I think they increase the size of search bar. So they actually want to, fetch the attention of user on that thing. That actually their intention is to know what customer actually want to search. That kind of thing. One change they have made. They play with color theme also. They have shifted towards the darker theme in the last one. So, and in the darker theme, the center search bar is, kind of highlighted, which attracts the attention of the user.
So let me ask you a question. Does all of these, there are about 3 different screens here. Does it look like the same designer did all 3? Harshal, does it look like all 3 are done by the same guy?
Well, it's kind of a tricky question, but no, because I think everybody's vision or intention is looking different for me also.
Awesome. Awesome. So I want you to expand on that question, on that point that you made, right? Intention. So what is the intention in design 1, 2, and 3? What is the difference? Just look at the search box and tell me what was the intention of the designer in all these 3. Only look at the search box. All right. So I think there are a couple of different solutions that are coming in as well. So I think the search product, right? If you look at the first one, it really has no search box. It does have a search box, but it's so grayed out that you can't even see it. And that search box itself, and I'm only looking at one element. I'm not looking at multiple elements. So when you look at that search box, it's got square edges and stuff like that, which is like a old world kind of a design, which is very, cut and cut and dry, let's get the job done. Okay, and it's invisible, so more or less you do not want people to be searching. Okay, the second one is interesting, where when you look at the search box, it's on a dark background, so it is obviously visible, but it's smaller. So it's a secondary action. You don't want people to search until they have navigated and seen everything. If they can't find anything, that is when you want people to search. Okay, when you come to the third design, okay, and it is kind of a mixture of both in terms of rounded corners. The first one is completely square, the second is fully rounded, the third is kind of in between. So it's kind of a little bit welcoming, but primary action here is search. You want people to search and get your answer. You don't want people to do anything else, right? Now look at it. There are three different design philosophies just in this, right? One guy believes in navigation, one person believes in searching, and the other person believes in, the third person is kind of on the fence and saying, I don't know what to do, so I'm going to make it in between. Right? So that is just search. When you look at the colors, the layouts, right? So what is your primary navigation, secondary navigation, right? The colors look significantly different, right? And so when you look at it, what is the intention? What is the unifying intention behind all of these products? It's very hard to tell. What is the personality of the product? It's very hard to tell, right? And that is what I mean by creating a design-centric organization. Okay. Now, what I mean by a design-centric organization is, for example, if you look at Apple, for a lot of us designers, we love Apple for one simple reason is, whether you go to their, Play Store, or you go online to you go to their physical store, or you go to, a tech support page or whatever, you are going to have a very consistent experience, right? Doesn't matter where. That's because the intention has been aligned in design for everybody together. Right, and Apple is basically they basically invest quite a bit of time on their design systems. You can tell that, right? So let's go on to the next slide. Okay, so the common problem is, you can very quickly look at it. Multiple people designed it, right? Multiple widgets are solving the same problem, but they all look different, right? The problem at the end of the day, nobody knows what the problem is, right? And different designers have different strategies and agendas. Right? And this is the core issue that you see with designers. Now, how do you solve this problem? Let's go on to the next slide. Right? Now, this is a second variation of it. So, will this design work or not? So, you've basically done, a design. You've kind of shown some design patterns here. You have two input text boxes, and then you have one large text box. And then you have input fields where you can add tags into it. Okay. So can somebody tell me why it would or would not work? Just unmute yourself and that's fine. Go ahead, Akash. You can unmute yourself, Akash.
Okay. Am I audible?
Yeah.
So I think in my point that it will work. That is input field, I will say. Tag 1 and tag 2, basically.
So it would work.
Yeah, because many a times user want to filter it out through the search. So they usually want that filter system inbuilt in that search box. That's my point of view, basically. Yes. So in my opinion, yeah, that input field will work.
Got it. So go ahead, Vijay.
It is like half baked. When I put an error text, how will that look? That is not there. And the input fields are wrong. Like the variations between the different stages of inputs, that is missing. And I think it is like half cooked.
Okay.
This one solves the problem fully.
So what is interesting in here is you have 4 variations of the same text box. The first has some kind of an image and text. The second is only a text. The third has an image and multiple tags. And the third one has it's a larger size text box, right? So the challenge again is, go ahead, Ishita. Yeah.
The same, like there are different types of components are available, the states are missing for each of the component.
So I think a larger challenge, bigger than the states, is one of you actually identified it, is under what context is this going to be applied, right? If one designer is applying this to solve a problem where they have to take an essay type answer, versus another designer that is solving a problem where the text box, the answer is kind of in between. It's not a text box, but it's not an input field, right? Or where a third person is basically trying to put in dates, right? Put in a date of birth or whatever. Now, this does not accommodate for all the possible contexts that people would have, right? So let's go on to the next slide, right? So the key challenge here is it's not the intention, right? The designers did not talk to each other about what are the contexts that the different designers have to work in. Okay. So for example, if you are solving a problem for one user, well, what kind of fields do you need? What kind of fields do I need? So generally, just setting up everybody agreeing on the intention, like, yeah, we want to make it easy is not sufficient. Because we want to make it easy, but what problems are each one of us solving? And therefore, what are the components that we are thinking about and how do we standardize them? That is the kind of discussion you need to be having. Okay. So other designers may not like redoing their work. So if you've just given this standard and the other person says, I don't want to redo my work, you have a problem, right? And then they're not sure why you're doing it in the first place. So the core thing is, number one, you need to define your intention when you're talking to your other designers. And the second thing you need to do is everybody needs to bring, it's like a potluck, right? Everybody's bringing their design components to the table and saying, these are my design components and these are the problems I'm solving. And so together you will choose, okay, what are the standards that you're going to put so everybody agrees on the same thing. Okay, cool. So with this, I'm going to just stop it for a second and I'm going to have, Saurabh show the gold standard for design systems. Okay, Saurabh, can you show the gold standard for design systems?
Sure, Prasad. Give me a second.
And again, when I say gold standard, literally gold standards evolve every year, right? So it's not to say that it's pathar ki lakhi, right? So it's not written in stone, it will change. But here's a design standard that we have done for a project where you are looking at clinic management software. Okay, this is a hypothetical problem that we've looked at, and this is how you design. So go ahead, Saurabh, all yours.
Right. So here, if you can see, we are documenting the intention, right? So drop down, what does drop down do, right? Then, okay, how is it constructed, right? What are the parts of it? One is drop down trigger. So you are explaining what are the types of drop down triggers, right? You'll use secondary in certain contexts, right? And tertiary in certain contexts, right? And then we are also defining, if you see, we are redlining, right? So we are defining what are the sizes and specs and all those things. And what are the limitations? How much can you stretch?
So one thing I do want to say here is when you're redlining, I know that, XD and Figma have plugins that let you do redlining, but do not trust it. Okay. Because, based on how you created the component, they might give different numbers. So you are accountable as a designer to relook all the data and verify it physically. Okay. Unless you do that, you cannot say that the system has generated, the engineering will take it. You will have complaints. Okay. Do not trust plugins. That's the quick hint that I'll give you. So go ahead, Saurabh.
Yeah. So, what will be the, how will the widths will change, right? As per the grid that you are using. So you were defining all that, right? You're defining the states for everything, right? And then you are doing the same thing for drop-down menu. When you click on a trigger, you get a menu, right? You are doing the same for it. You are defining all the different types that are possible within your problem or your product that you are doing. And, you are defining it only text with icon, with actions, without actions, right?
So this is one thing that I'd want to, say, like, what Saurabh said was, you are doing this for all the designs within your context. You're not doing for all possible drop downs. You don't have to solve all the problems. Okay.
Right.
Just look at the 5 or 6 designers that are in there, or maybe you only, but the 20 pages that you have to design, like what is the likelihood that you have to use a drop down? In what forms do you have to use it? And you're standardizing it. Okay. So don't do for everything, just do for what you need for your application. Okay. And tomorrow, if you need something else, you have a meeting, you discuss, okay, will this meet or not? And then you add it into your component library and then it continues onwards. Okay, cool.
Right. And then you are defining states for it, right? How will it be when it is selected versus not selected and all those things. And then you are defining maximum and minimum sizes for it and rules for it also, right? When will you increase what and what will you not increase, right? So like this is the ideal one, but here the size of the trigger is smaller. So you'll take the width of the drop down menu and you'll, do that accordingly. But if the size of trigger is more, you'll adjust the menu accordingly. So you're defining all those rules here so that, there is no confusion on when you want to design it for some other screen, or if you're communicating it with the engineers, right? Same thing you are doing for height. What is the limitation is what you are defining, right? And selection rules and all. And then you are redlining at the end, right? What are the specs? What style are you using? And, all the other properties that are there. So now there is no ambiguity, right? When to use what and how to use it, what limitations to define for it, right? And this is just an example for drop down, right? You do the same for everything else, even as simple as, something like a color, right? You are defining everything, use case, accessibility, what passes, what does not pass, right?
So one thing I just want to add here is Saurabh has stated accessibility, especially when you're building international products, okay? Accessibility is legally mandated, okay? So European Union has its own laws, the US has its own laws for accessibility. So you need to be aware of those kind of laws and how they impact your design guidelines, okay? So this is not something that you would do just like, okay, kar diya, right? There are real world legal implications for this. Cool. Let's go on to the next slide.
Yeah, so this is basically the overview of this design system, and I'm showing it in InVision because this is done 3 years back, right? So we have a much more evolved version of it now, but we wanted to, make something available for the outer audience so that, we can explain you and show you how systematically you can do something so that you can, remove the ambiguity completely, right? Yeah.
And Saurabh is our visual guru. So Saurabh, I have some questions. If you could answer these questions, that would be helpful. I'll read out the questions. So let's see. Khushbu says, should we build our own design system?
Right. It depends on what kind of, what is the scale of the product and what is the context of the product that you are using in, right? For example, if you are designing something that has to be used in Android ecosystem, right? You don't have to necessarily do it if the scale is also small of the product. If you just want to, help the users with certain functionality, right? You don't necessarily have to create a design system. You can use that kind of, material that is there. You can use that, right? But let's say if you're doing a large scale product, something like, let's say Cred or, products like that, Zomato and things like that. When you want to, create your own brand identity that you want to communicate through design system is when you should define it. And you should define it as per what your context is and in a very comprehensive manner so that, there is no ambiguity again. So this would be my, short answer to that. Yeah.
Yeah. And my advice is from a more pragmatic perspective. Design systems, you only do design systems when you're creating a unique brand and a unique space for yourself, right? 90% of the time when you're creating apps or when you're starting off or whatever, you really don't need design systems. When your product becomes really complex, when you have too many designers in the space, when you have a lot of variation, that is when you want to start coordinating your design systems. And maybe the design system could be like, what Saurabh said, you use the material design guidelines, but let us say there are 5 designers, everybody is using 5 text boxes. So your design system doesn't have to do everything. You just define, okay, we have variations in text boxes. This is the standard, right? So you're standardizing where you have unnecessary variation. So that could be like the design system minus, right? It's a baby version of the design system. So you are solving the problem of standardization, and design systems is the way you do it. Okay. Does that make sense? Is that okay, Saurabh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Good. So then we have, let's see, where a lot of questions jumped in. So where is Ishita, right? What is the standard time to build a design system which covers most of the components used? How much time will it take?
Yeah, again, before defining the design system, you will define, what, how much effort you'll have to put for, designing that product, right? And based on that, you can define how much time it will take. But I would say, whenever you are collaborating with other designers and whenever you are, designing something that is scalable, right, is when you should do design system. For example, I'll take a very basic example. It's like, let's say, let's say a pop-up menu, right? Or just, let's say a pop-up window, right? Now you want to use it in, let's say in one screen and some other screen as well. Then you should define, one kind of rule only, so that, you don't have to recreate it again and again and again, right? You can design that pop-up once and you can define rules for it, right? How will you scale it? What are the different selections rule, right? When will you use actions? When will you not use actions? And all those things. You define it once and you can use it anywhere. So whenever you want to use something again and again is when you should start defining design systems, right? Yeah.
And you may not realize it, but your company probably already uses a design system, right? It's just that it's not in your control. So when somebody says I'm using Bootstrap or somebody says I'm using some other toolkit or whatever, that's a design system. The engineers use it without your permission, right? What you have to do is you have to now take the design system, think about it, and then you apply your logic on top of it. So you are constraining and you're putting additional rules in terms of how engineers can use it, right? So that is also a perfectly valid system. It's not about creating a brand new design system. Just take Bootstrap or whatever your engineering team is using it and define the rules around it so that the engineering team is more effective, right? So again, there's different ways that you can play about it, but I think, the time in itself can be variable depending on the scope that you're looking at. Right. Cool. Awesome. So, Varun, Nirupama, Akash, can you guys wait until we finish the rest of the presentation because I want to talk about the intention communication? Cool. Awesome. So let's go on to the next slide. So the design systems in itself, doing it physically is very easy, right? I mean, it's like literally a checkbox, right? So it's once you do it once or twice, you understand it, you will do it. But the point is, you will never get influence in your company until you follow these rules. Okay, so forget the design systems right now. The physical implementation of the design system, don't worry about it right now. Think about how you're going to do it. That is more important because that is what is going to give you power and influence in your organization. Okay, so the goal when you're trying to build a consensus when you're doing design systems is to get everybody to agree upon three things. Okay, the first thing is your intention. What is the intention of the application, right? What are the core measures of success for the product? So if you do one design, and you have to decide like, okay, is that design good or not, right? So you have to agree on the metrics. Don't agree on the design because everybody will have an opinion. What are the metrics that is going to define whether this design is successful or not? Okay. What are the core themes that will drive your design philosophy? Okay. Then the next thing that you're looking at is what are the limitations and opportunities? Okay. So you're looking at hardware, software, users, and market. So as for the purpose of this workshop, I'm only going to look at hardware and software, but you can look at users and market as well. I mean, that is something that you would have to do in a practical environment. Okay. Then you look at the context. What is the goal of your product? Who are your users? And what is the business problem you're solving? So this is where you are starting to bring in the business problems into your thought process. Okay. Because you need to then also have that conversation with business leaders. Okay. Everybody signed off on this? 3 steps, 3 things. Okay, now let's go on to the next slide. Okay, so here's a classic example. Okay, so I'm basically going to say the Ideas Clinic is a newly established multi-speciality clinic in Hyderabad. The biggest challenge for them is people are not aware of the services that they're having. and they're losing customers because they're not able to they're not able to show availability and scheduling capabilities to their users. Okay. And also doctors' visits are too long with uncertain wait times and long queues. So that is the problem. That is the product that you're building. Okay. So another problem is medical records are increasing the risk of losing and tampering. So there's all these other issues. So, but the biggest challenge when you think about it from the product perspective is you need to be able to solve all these problems. Okay. Now let's assume that we have all of you guys are designers and this is a massive multi-billion-dollar project, let us say. Okay. Now I need you to understand the intention. What are the limitations in hardware? What is the context? Okay. We have to get this agreed upon. All right. So I'm going to just call on 3 people, let us say. Okay. So maybe not. Let's just be running a little bit short on time. So let me go on to the next slide. Okay. So when you start thinking about it, you say, okay, what are the metrics that I'm going to measure myself by, right? Because if you start jumping into like this design is good versus this design is bad, then you guys will come back and argue with me like, Prasad, why do you think my design is not better than yours, right? Or why do you think your design is better? Or why do you think his design is better, right? So there's going to be all those problems. So the better way to do it is decide on the metrics that you're going to define, succeed by, okay? So the core measures that we are going to say is credibility, because obviously it's a medical system. So you need to have a lot of credibility. And the biggest problem is availability scheduling. So efficiency is the problem. So the core measures for any design that any designer proposes is credibility and efficiency. If it is meeting both of those standards, then it is a good design. Okay, so that is what we agreed upon. Then the next thing that you say is, what are the themes, right? So the themes are, I want my product to be friendly, it needs to be seamless, and it needs to be ergonomic, right? So those are the kind of themes that I'm approaching. So when I say ergonomic, I don't really mean ergonomics in the physical sense, but I mean it in a more, in a more metaphorical sense, right? It needs to be accessible and engageable, those kind of, so it's a metaphorical word. So it's a friendly, seamless, and ergonomic are the 3 themes that we are going to approach it. Okay. So all designs again are standard, user friendly. That's right. So let's go on. So the intention is agreed upon. Okay. Everybody get what I did here? Anybody have a doubt on this? Just type no, and then I can answer that. Cool. Let's go on to the next slide. Okay. So now you are all agreeing upon what are the limitations and opportunities. So this is where you bring in your business guys in as well. So, okay, let's go back to the previous slide. So Shamli says, let's repeat. So what I've done, Shamli, is I've basically created, what we've done is we have decided what is the metric for success. Okay. Because you don't want 2 designers arguing about my design is better, my design is better. So better than that, we say, okay, if it is credible and efficient, then it is successful. Okay. So you're defining your metrics and you're defining what are the core measures. So how would you want your app to feel like, right? For a customer. So you're saying it's friendly, seamless, and ergonomic. So you're deciding that. So this is not something that I'm saying, but in a hypothetical situation where 4 or 5 designers will sit down together, they'll all decide, okay, these are the core measures. These are the themes in which we are going to design. Okay. That's all there is. So it's just a matter of a bunch of designers coming together and deciding these elements. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Then you are coming here and everybody's deciding, okay, what is it? So this is where you would actually involve your product managers if you want, product leaders or business leaders, right? So business leaders, interestingly, you can ask them, well, what is the problem that you have, right? What are the opportunities that you have? So I think that is where the engagement and the discussion can happen. So when you look at hardware, you might say, okay, yeah, we are focusing only on desktop and we are assuming that you will have 3 sensors, camera, speaker, and microphone. Okay. So those are the 3 different devices. Or you might say, no, there are no other devices, but these are decisions that you would make with your team members. Okay. Then you look at the software and you say, yep, we are primarily going website, breakpoint. Now that URL that is there, now if Rajiv, if you can copy and paste that and put it for everyone, that will be great. Because that stat counter is like magic. Right? Because it gives you the statistics of screen sizes, devices, all that stuff all around the world. Literally, when you have to decide on your product, you just have to go to stat counter and you have all the statistics at your fingerprints. Okay, not at your fingertips, not fingerprints, fingertips. But yeah, Rajiv will copy and paste that link for you. You don't have to type it in. But yeah, Rajiv, if you can type it, that'll be great. But yeah, so based on the breakpoints, you're defining, yeah, you know, the standard is going to be 1200 pixels, right? So this is where you're talking about your breakpoints. Breakpoints are your first page, second page, third page. Okay. So the design systems, Mukesh, is actually, you know, it's proprietary. We keep it in-house. We do not publish it outside. So we use it for training purposes, but you know, the point being is we will show it to you again, don't worry, so you can understand. And there's lots of other really good design systems that are outside as well, so we can point you to them. So your standard breakpoints 1200 pixels, your low is going to be 800 and the high is going to be 1920. Okay, so this is what you've defined based on your statistics. And then you say, okay, now what is the opportunity? The opportunity is if you're deploying it in a hospital, you control the hardware and software. Right? So you have an opportunity. So you don't have to worry about it. You have access to high-speed internet. So you don't have to worry about internet. So now based on these, you can kind of create solutions around that. So that's what it is. So this is where you have listed out all your limitations and opportunities. Any questions or thoughts here? Cool. Awesome. All right. So let's go on to the next slide. Okay. So this is where now you are kind of thinking about the context, right? So the context is, what is the business goal? What is the business environment in which this system is going to go, right? Or what is the environment in which the user is going to use it? So what you do is, this is a simple technique. So when somebody gives you the requirements, write it down. Okay. And then what you do is you literally bold out all the keywords, okay, that are going to influence your thought process. So you say, okay, awareness is a keyword, right? Lack of transparency is a keyword. Uncertain wait times is a keyword. Long queues is a keyword. Increasing the risk of loss and tampering, right? So it's a spelling mistake, but tampering. So yeah, so these are the keywords that have been highlighted. So what do you say is your goal? Your goal is to improve the credibility of the clinic with faster recovery process for patients by making the consultation process more efficient. So that is the context, right? You want to make the consultation process more efficient and thereby increase credibility, or get people better faster and increase the credibility, right? That's the game you're playing. So that's the context that you've identified. Okay. Now you go on to the next slide. And that pretty much does that. And then this is where you're defining your user problems and business problems. So for that context, you're listing out what are the user problems, what are the business problems, right? Business problem says, okay, awareness is a problem. People are not aware whether something is available or not, some doctor is available or not. And this is interesting, right? Because nobody will talk to you about business problem. But as a designer, unless you plan for business problems, you will not be able to convince your business leaders. Okay, so this is what you need to do, is you need to say security of documents. That's a business problem, because what if you get hacked, all the documents get leaked? What are the complications of that, right? So you need to say security, or increasing the wait time. So increased wait time is a business problem. So these are the business problem. The user problem is lack of transparency, uncertain wait time, and long queue. So now you've listed out your user problems and your business problems. Okay, so now every designer in your team is solving the same business problem, the same user problem. So if your design leaders go and talk to A, B, or C, everybody's talking the same language. Okay, everybody get this? Go ahead, Kratik. You have to unmute, I suppose.
Sir, I just wanted to ask if we have written a user problems and business problems just by analyzing the context. So what, like, we generally, when we see it, okay, we are not correlating the things, but when it comes to task, or when it comes to, we don't able to realize, okay, lack of transparency is the thing that we need to focus on. Now how you have jot down all these three things, these are the user problems to focus on, these are the business problems, so how to strategically point out this, or how you analyzed it?
See, business problems you basically kind of see within the document itself, but usually this is when you talk to your business leaders, right? Well, what are the problems? So this is kind of giving you an understanding of what they're worried about. What is engineering not sleeping about, right? Engineering will say hack ho jayega, hack ho jayega. They're worried about hacking, So you go talk to your stakeholders. So, but at the end of the day, the core goal at this point on day one is all the designers should have the same language. Kisi se bhi baat karo, same language wapas aaye, right? Because once your product managers, your engineers, and your business leaders start hearing the same language, they will start registering it, right? And now, interestingly enough, now they will say, okay, why did you do this widget? Why did you not do this widget? You can say, well, you told me that it's increased wait time, right? So now when you think about the app, this gets the job done in 10 steps versus my suggestion does it in 2 steps. Which one do you want? So now what you're doing is you are basically setting the ground rules for any future argument that you will have with anybody in the organization. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Got it.
Cool. So, and the other thing that you also pointed out, when you're doing it, this sounds great. But when you are actually in the environment, in a work environment, you will forget about all that. How do you do it, right? My answer to that is systematically, step by step. Ek din mein, you cannot change everything, right? Pehle problems identify karo, फिर धीरे धीरे आप अपना discipline maintain, just like we do minutes of meetings and all those disciplinary items, right? Once you start doing all this systematically, you do a design system, then everybody is held accountable to the same system, then automatically you will have free time to think big. So the important thing is have the time, create time so you can think. Okay, cool. Go ahead, Punish.
Yeah, so like my quick question is like how to prioritize this. Like, should we give priority to the user problems or a business problems?
It depends.
Like while designing.
It depends, right? So because see, the truth of the matter is, unless and until your company makes money, they cannot pay your salary. Right? However, unless your company has users, they cannot make any money. So that is what you as a designer are looking at is, okay, maybe I will solve 3 of the user problems and 1 of the business problems. Right?
Yeah.
So on every page, you might have different ways of looking at it. So on one page, for example, the user has to doesn't have a choice but to do something. Okay. Then you add thoda distraction dal de to koi farak nahi padta, because people will complete the task no matter what. Right? In another page, let us say there is a high risk of the customer dropping off. In which case, don't sell your business, right? So get the person's job done.
Makes sense, yeah.
Right? So you will, at a page by page level, you'll be prioritizing these business problems, saying, how am I achieving this, right? At an experience by experience level, you'll be thinking about different problems and you'll be prioritizing them in real time. Okay, cool. Go ahead, Mukesh.
Yeah, Prasad. So, like my understanding is, if we are solving user problems, it is definitely impacting the business in growth and in terms of creating a positive value. So why not just prioritize on the user problem? Because end of the day, we are designing for the users, and it will automatically help the business to grow. So I'm not completely clear on why we segregate between user and business problems then and prioritize each other.
See, the one reason why UX doesn't get heard much in a company is because UX is perceived as not worrying about the business.
Okay.
Right? So if you are a business, if I'm the CEO of the company and I say, yeah, you only care about what the customer wants, you don't care about the survival of the company, do you think I would listen to you?
No.
Right? Which is why we have to take that into consideration, right? I mean, you just go on LinkedIn and just search for designers should take a seat, right? They think designers should get a seat. I think that's the term that most designers say. What they mean is, I want to be sitting in a room where product decisions are being made.
Right.
Right? So I think that is the point. So unless and until you are able to think about the business problems and weave them into your prioritization, you will not get the respect that you want.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Let's go on to the next slide. I know there are a number of different questions, but I want to make sure that I'm answering, I'm completing the content because I know people have to drop off. So it's just about 2 or 3 more slides, and then I think that's good. So the key takeaway at this point is, the first battle that you have to win as part of design systems is you have to build a consensus within all your other fellow designers. right? You have to do that consensus with an understanding of what your business wants, what engineering wants. Take all the data, you sit down, and then you decide, and then have one language when you're talking to the rest of the organization. Okay, that is the big game that you guys need to play first. Okay, cool. So let's go on to the next slide. I think that's the end of it. Yeah, so that's the end of day one. So for day two, we will talk about how to do outcome-oriented communication, which we will deep dive into the actual design system itself. We will talk about all the use cases, states, and all that stuff. And we will discuss that in a lot more detail. So because engineering guys focus on details, right? And if you can create a system with details for them, you will have the best friends with engineers, right? And that's what it is. And then on day three, we'll talk about strategic communication with product management leadership. All right. So I believe that's the end. Let's go to the next slide. Yeah. So for those of you that have joined for day one, come on, join, become a member. We'd love to have you. So we get to talk about stuff. And again, one other thing is, can we get a recording? The recording is streaming live on YouTube, so you can watch on YouTube as well. So this content is available for you. But what we are going to be doing as far as recordings are concerned is we'll try to edit them and put them. But for the people that want to do this as an exercise and build up their portfolio, build a design system for practice and build up their portfolio, we are going to do an exercise right after this. So for those of you that are interested, we are doing the beta of the Portfolio Builder series. So please sign up for that. Again, that is open to all members. But yeah, so if you're a member, you get to access all of this. So please join us, become a member, and we'll have a lot of fun. Let's go to the next step. Next one. And this is the homework for today. All right. So this homework will be put on the Discord channel. For those of you that are not on the Discord channel, I would suggest you join the Discord channel so you can see the homework. But essentially, this is about job seekers creating a layout for their resumes. And so the specific problem will be shared. But what you have to do is, form teams of 2 or 3 people and then start discussing what is the intention, what are the limitations, what is the context. The same trick that I gave, right? Use the bolding. Bold the words and then have discussions. It's okay to have different opinions because that would be great, right? If everybody is agreeing, then you're not learning. Okay, so form teams where everybody is disagreeing and you're kind of challenging each other. And this would take probably about an hour, hour and a half of your time, but I would suggest it is going to be worth quite a bit as you start going through the process because you practice those skills of negotiation and discussion. Okay, so Discord channel is here. And then share your thoughts and put your homework as part of the Discord channel. Publish your work on Discord and then comment on other people's work. Okay. And again, these are the things that help you introduce yourself to this community as well as the community kind of know you better. And so that's how you build a very strong relationship. Okay. Now, these are the rules and how you do it. So Discord channel link is given here. You find the assignment. There's a channel that says #workshop assignment. Go there. And then you make a post on assignment submission and then share your thoughts for other people. Okay. So Piali, the way you become a member is, can you share the member link, guys? So yeah, so we are beta testing the Portfolio Builder series. We want to see how we can help people build their portfolios to be really strong so you can go out and kind of talk about it, not just, do what everybody else has done. So we are going to do that. So for those of you that are interested, please let Rajiv know. Rajiv is our community guru. So you can always talk to him, reach out to him on Discord or wherever, and then he can help you, get into that, the Portfolio Builder series. Awesome. I think that's it. That's the end of the day. For people that want to drop off, please feel free to drop off. I can be here for another 10 more minutes to answer any questions you might have. But otherwise, have a great rest of the day and see you tomorrow. Chalo. Bye, guys. Okay, go ahead, Krati.
So my question is, say when we used to do design, we always be more emphasized on goals. So these are our goals. So can we have multiple goals for just one intent or one context? Say we are working on a team, in a team of 3 to 4 people.
So give मेरे को एक doubt है. Which one is bigger? Is the intention bigger or the goal bigger?
But from intention, we come to goal now. That first we have context, then we have intention. Then after analyzing both the things, then finally we come to our goal. Okay, this is the thing. This is the goal for it. But while working in a team of designers, it is not important that everyone will now get agreed on that one goal. Might be there is a possibility that it should be 2 or 3 goals, and all are important with different context and with different perceptions. So how?
See, I'll give you a classic example. Okay. So let's take Flipkart or Amazon. Okay. Amazon may you have a page where you can look at the item. Okay. On that page, in that item, you will have multiple designers working on it. So probably about 3 or 4 designers will be working only on one page. Okay. So what happens is you will have to say one guy's goal will be how do I sell, how do I help the customer buy this product, right? The whatever product there, one designer's goal is isi ko kharido, right? Another designer's goal is how do I help the person discover new products related to this product, right? A third designer's goal might be how do I make sure that I help this designer buy any product out of Amazon, right? So understand that the user's goal itself changes over time. So when a user is landing on that page, initially they are thinking, okay, is this product right for me or not, right? If it is right for me, I want to buy it. So the first designer is solving that problem. Then the next thing is then at some point you might actually think, and you do this, go to Amazon when you're buying something and notice how your goals change on one single page, right? Then on the same page, you might actually be thinking, maybe this is not the best product for me. So what other products are there, right? How do I compare this product? So then the second designer's goal comes into play, right? Then you have somewhere else, you might say, no, okay, I don't think I want to buy it right now. I'm going to go somewhere else. Well, the third designer's goal is, no, I don't want this guy to go khali haath, right? I want to make sure this person is buying a product from here, right? So then the third designer is kicking in. So the point being is all three are connected by one single goal, make a sale.
So is it good to make goals on a higher level and then
and that is what happens. So when you have designers, so you would have one designer who's the lead. Okay. So it's like a manager or a director of design or whatever. So this individual is looking at the whole page, right? They are saying this is the series of goals that you have to plan for, but everybody's aligned on this one single goal.
Okay. So is it good for example, I'm a single designer and I recognize 2 major goals. So is it good to not think in this direction? Is it the right approach? Like I can have multiple goals in my mind.
Absolutely. People's goals changes with time. People's goals change as they scroll. People's goals change as they look at more pages. So, but the main thing that you have to think about is whatever you do, you have to prioritize, right? So if you start prioritizing, this is my number 1 goal, number 2 goal, number 3 goal, that's better. But if you have 2 or 3 goals that you have not prioritized, your design will be confused. Okay. So a classic example is there's a Korean website called naver.com. Usko dekho to na dimag designer ka, sub fuse explode ho jata hai, right? Because they try to sell you everything in every place.
Can you repeat
There is no
again?
single concept of a goal.
So which one can you repeat again?
I'll type it in.
Okay.
Naver.com. And look at Korean websites. They're just like, I've been in meetings in Korea where literally these guys say Korean users are smarter, so they can deal with more information. Maneka, how are they smarter, right? So, but the point is that's what it is. So they try to sell you everything in every place.
Every place. Okay.
There is no goal.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So go ahead, Nirupama.
Yeah, Prasad. First, my question is: designers are saying we are sharing Figma file. Why we have to give all measurements in the design system?
All right. So I will actually challenge you back. Nirupama, you're an engineer, right?
Yeah,
so tell me, as an engineer, what would your answer be to that designer?
See, without measurements and all, we assume whatever we want and we will build up the pages. So when we compare with the whatever the screens mockups they have already delivered, that won't be as per deliverables.
Right.
So that is
the
one
reason is because there are variations.
Yeah. Yeah.
So depending on how you use the Figma file, okay, your tool might say the height of a widget is 58 pixels. In some other use case, it might say 56 pixels. In some other use case, it might say 52 pixels. Okay?
Yes, yes.
Visually, for a designer who's looking at 3 different widgets at different times, if you put them side by side, you can tell the difference. But usually designers are looking at so many widgets that they cannot tell, right?
Yes.
And so when they cannot tell, what happens is goes to engineer. Now, engineer has to write extra code for every box. So he's writing code for 3 boxes.
3 boxes, yes.
Right? Now, imagine the amount of frustration that the engineering guy will have on this guy. Right? Now, imagine if that complaint now goes to the business leader. This designer does not know what they're doing. They give me 3 boxes, 56, 58, and 52. Right? Now, they're making me do unnecessary work. Now, what do you think the business leader is going to think about you?
It's a wastage of time and everything.
They don't have the trust. They do not believe that you care about the company. That's the bigger problem, right? Because you don't worry about like, is it going to take 4 days, 10 days? Is it going to take 100 lines of code, 20 lines of code? So that is where the alignment has to come, which is why I say, if you do it in Figma, the designer can say, I do it in Figma. I've used a tool to do it. I gave it to you.
Yeah.
But if you are getting rid of your responsibility like that, then of course people will treat you like that only.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you are conscientious, you're detail oriented, you are worried about how the product succeeds and all that, your career will grow 5 or 10 faster, right? So designers, and unfortunately most designers, and this is what I say is the difference between UI designers and UX designers, right? UI designers only think at a component level. A component kar diya, next, let's go to the next component. But a UX designer thinking about the experience, the long term, right? What is the experience with shipping a product? What's the experience with developing the product? So you're thinking longitudinally. So that is a huge difference.
Yeah.
Okay. But I would also say that it is a realistic thing, especially given that you've kind of moved into a leadership role in a design in a company, and you have probably a few designers reporting to you. Now, to bring that culture change is a challenge for you. Because they'll say, you know, Nirupama is making me work harder. Right?
Yeah.
So you will have those kind of cultural problems. But my advice to you is look at the 1 or 2 designers in your team that genuinely want to do something.
Okay.
Right? Build your team around them. Because if you are forcing yourself on everybody, your designers resign and leave, your job is in risk.
Yes. Yes.
Right? So what you want to do is you don't want to put your job at risk. You identify the 1 or 2 guys that you think can do the job, groom them, and then you give the standards to everybody, right? And hold everybody else accountable to those standards.
Okay, sure, Prasad. Thanks for the great advice. Yeah. And my second advice question is, see, company have internal projects. For every company, and external projects also will be there, no? For company, we have to give one design system that will work for the company. So whatever the projects we are going to work on. But external projects, that will be a different projects, and altogether we are going to deliver 1 screen or 2 screens or 10 screens like that. So in that case,
so there's a different flavor to that, right? So there's a flavor to that.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of different use cases. Okay.
Yes.
So generally when UXReactor steps into a company, right, we are taking over their whole design function. So what we do is, and the company is looking to scale up, right? So scale up means they know their business model is done, everything is done. They probably have a few $1 million in funding, a few tens of $1 million in funding, and they want to now go to the next 100,000 users. Okay. So that is the time when they desperately need a design system in place. Okay. So what we do is we actually set up the design system for them because it's part of our job to scale up.
Yes.
Okay. But you might have companies that are just coming to you and saying, okay, I just want 5 screens.
Yes.
Right. So in which case you don't have to worry about that. You ask them, what are your design standards? What standards do you follow? Right?
But
so
they are sharing the standards. They are not at all up to the mark.
So this is where you have an opportunity.
Yeah, but what they are saying, no, Prasad, already the same kind of application, they have hundreds of applications. They are following the same standards. So if you are changing in one place means I have to work on another 200 places. So that
True.
is a cumbersome for them. So that's
they
what
will have
I
a
think.
standard. They will have a standard.
Right?
Take that standard, develop on that standard.
That standards are not up to the mark. That's what I'm saying. So
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because see, this is what I say, right? This is why this is also the career trajectory, right? Companies looking to you to do UI work.
Yes.
Your career is only going to end up in UI. Right? If your company expects UX work, then your career will be UX, right?
Yes.
If your clients are expecting CX work, then your career is CX.
Yeah.
So that is how you tell you that. Remember, I told you type 1, type 2, type 3 companies.
Yes.
This is the example of it, right?
They are industrial large clients, Prasad. So all are B2B projects. So dark background, and on top of that, navigations are darker, not able to legible. So if we give all the design audit and everything, we did it and we have given the suggestions and everything. But they were saying that no, Nirupama, if I want to do in one change means in one application, I have to work on another 200 applications. They are following the same pattern.
Right. And I think that's okay, right? So that is, see, this is where you have multi-billion-dollar opportunities.
Yeah.
Right. So for example, Techion is a company. Okay. Now, or Tesla. Tesla is this company where how did it get so big? Right. So the reason is because, earlier, every guy has their own software. You want to customize the car, you can't do it. You want to get your car in for maintenance, you can't. There's so many pain points. It's been decided. It's a huge industry. Whatever software was done 1960, it continues on till today.
Yes.
Right. Literally what Tesla did was they came in and they said, we are going to create a brand new ground up system and all that. And they made all these traditional companies run for their money. Today, Tesla is worth more than Ford and all these top guys put together. It is worth more than them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So now what has happened is suddenly all these companies are seeing, oh my God, like you see this new company that's coming whose valuation is so much more than mine, right? This guy is valuating himself like a software company, not like a manufacturing company.
Yes.
Right? So now all these manufacturing companies are trying to come up to that. So what is happening? This is what is called a process of digital transformation.
Yes, true.
Right?
Yeah.
So digital transformation is a multi-trillion-dollar business right now. Right? So the thing is, you need to have people capable of transforming the business, right? So that is why you need design systems. All the digital transformation is all of these skills together is what helps a company digitally transform.
Yeah. True.
Right? So which basically means you have to be aligned. Your career has to be aligned in those roles.
Yeah. We have to change their mindset actually.
Yeah. And it's not mindset, right? If a company is coming to you to say, listen, I want you to do this widget. That's what they want, right?
Yeah.
If the company is coming to you, say, I want to digitally transform myself, it's a different game altogether.
Different game, yes.
Right?
Yes.
So your company's marketing has to change, your company's strategy has to change, everything has to change at the higher level, not your level.
Yes.
Right? Because by the time they bought the guy, they already told him what to expect. We'll do all your widgets is what the sales guy told. Now you'll say, no, I'll do design system means what he will do.
Okay. That agreement has been already done.
It's already done.
They're not going to, yeah, maybe that I have to know. Yeah. So, so if at all any projects are coming for one screen and 2 screens means that we are not supposed to do any design system for that one, no? Prasad?
Why do you need to do it?
Yeah. So if at all very less kind of screens and all.
Yeah. See, if you understand, this is also a market industry changing shift, right? So if you think about it, Wipro, right? TCS, all these companies have huge design teams.
Yes.
But what was the need to go spend a few $100 million and buy Design It for Wipro? They went and bought a company in Netherlands. I think Design It is a Dutch company or wherever. They bought that company, the design company. Why? Right? And today, if you look at Wipro, you have 2 kinds of designers. One is the general designer, other is the Design It designer.
Okay. I haven't.
Right?
Okay.
It's like a difference. There is a difference.
Okay.
Right? Why you have, Because that is the point, right? So for the longest time, Wipro was realizing that if I do screen by screen by screen, I can bill $10 an hour. Okay. But if I do this digital transformation, I can bill $50 an hour or $100 an hour.
Okay.
Right? So the value is 90%, 9x more, or like what is it? Yeah, it's a 9x more, isn't it?
Yes.
So they are willing to pay in euros and buy a design team in the Europe and then build a team around that, isn't it?
Yes.
The profits are more in digital transformation, not in UI.
Yes, yes, true.
Salaries are more there. Careers are better there.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, true.
Cool. Awesome.
Thank you, Prasad.
Yep. Go ahead, Akash.
Yeah. Basically, when Saurabh presented the
Hey,
design
can you turn on your camera, yeah?
Yeah, sure.
It feels very lonely just talking to a blank screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, when Saurabh presented the design system, so basically, I had one question because when we try to develop the design system, we need to also identify the developer challenges also. Either they're going to develop in React or any kind of other technologies or frameworks they want as per their needs.
Right. Right.
So my question was like how we can identify the maximum because we need to talk to developer that they usually say that we are going to use that type of framework, so you can prefer that design system. But in our case, like in my case, basically we have multiple design system. One is for internal, like I will say for internal projects, and one is for other service-based client basically. So many a times developer like they prefer like company design system because it is easy to maintain and it is easy to use for them. But for some purpose, like clients demand that we need that you need to use our design system for that. And we can make that. That's not our challenge. But how we can convince to the engineering team basically. But at that time it could be a challenge for them also.
So wait. So what you're saying is you need to convince them to use a new design system. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
I don't think you need to, Akash. That's what I'm saying. So this is exactly what Saurabh is also saying, right? And Saurabh, please feel free to jump in if you disagree. But see, new design systems is a lot of work. Right?
Exactly.
If you are just following React.js design patterns and all that, just follow that. There is no problem in it whatsoever.
Right.
However, right, the problem that starts is you have to keep your eye on for certain kinds of situations. Okay, what if there's a large variation of text boxes? Right? What if there's variation, not text boxes, but patterns, right? If there's a variation of patterns to solve the same problem. Right? Or you have a lack of rules in terms of what design pattern to apply with. Right? Because React will give you design pattern, but doesn't tell you when to use what.
Exactly.
So you have to define those rules. You have to set up that structure. So you can still set up a design system around React.js, right? So what I mean by design system is your, design system consists of multiple components, isn't it? First component, how does it look? Right?
Exactly.
How does it act?
Right.
And how do all these components behave with each other?
Exactly.
Right? Interact with each other, right? So look, act, interact. Those are the three main things that you look at in any design system.
Right.
So what you have is you have the look. Now you have to do the act and interact. You put that together, it becomes a system.
Exactly.
Right?
So basically,
you don't have to convince people to do something unless you see a need for it. Don't do it.
Yeah, but like when client asks, like for example, they already have their own design system. Basically, I'm talking about the external project. So, and we have our own design system. So basically, like as you know, like they prefer own design system rather than using the client design system, right? But what if client demands that don't use your design system, use our design system? Means I am saying client design system basically. Yeah.
Which is okay as long as they have a design system. See, companies pay millions of dollars to build design systems.
Exactly.
Right? Why would they come to you and say like, throw out my millions of dollars and do your design system? They've invested a lot of time and energy into it, right? So there is no harm in following the design system as long as they have a design system.
Okay.
Right? It kind of goes back to what Nirupama was saying, which is why I think it's interesting is a lot of people do not have experience working with design system for that one simple reason, because somebody is going to give you a design system, just follow it, right? But the point is, as long as you don't learn how to build design systems, you will not grow in your career.
Exactly.
Right? So that is always a challenge. That's where you have to look at your opportunities. But I would say there's nothing wrong in following another design system. It's good.
Okay.
Right?
Sure.
Because it helps you understand how they thought about it, what was their logic and all that. So you still learn from it.
Right.
Cool. And if you see some obvious problems, you can always highlight it. You can augment the design system. Cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Akash. Go ahead, Parmeshwaran. So can you turn on your camera?
Sorry, my camera is not working. I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead. No worries.
So it's a general question. So mostly when we are designing maybe some screens or user flows or something like that, usually even from the client side or maybe from the the BAs and everyone will encourage initially for a different kind of designs. But once we design, ultimately before taking to the client side, maybe that might be interesting thing visually also. Maybe usability we cannot tell initially, but visually also and generally understanding a particular context, it will be easier. But usually what happens is that once we introduce to those people, they will most of the time, 80% they will tell that I think this is going to be taking more time to build, or more time to we already gave the estimates to the client, so this is going to due to more time, the budget is very low, so this is going to increase the budget, or the effort might be more. So in such situations, how can we convince them, like because they even
I think
agree?
the sale is already done.
Okay.
Right. Once the sale is done, it's very hard for you to change. But I do know one member, Anita, she was in this call and the client would tell her to do this and she would tell her boss, like, this does not make sense. Right. And her boss was supportive enough to say, okay, why don't you talk to the client directly? And she talked to the client directly and she convinced the client that that was the right way to do it. And then, then she said, the client said, okay, fine, this is the right way. And she said, well, that's going to cost you more money because it's going to take more time from our side to do it. So she actually got more money and increased the bill rate of not the bill rate, but increased the billing on that project, right? So that is also possible. The key thing is you have to have that ability to convince, and you have to have the conviction that what you're thinking is right. And you have to have the data to kind of convince somebody about it, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but, I would just, my recommendation would be that, you need to have a vocabulary and a logic behind how you're doing stuff so that you can go and have those discussions.
Okay. So cool. Sometimes even the politics will play a big role, because even some cases, even a client likes the thing, but ultimately when maybe after that, maybe they might be telling us to do some small changes. When they take to the next level, then this will be kept on side and they will be telling us to do some scale down versions of the same. So
right. See, there's always a lot of politics politics are not necessarily bad, right? Politics comes when multiple people have multiple points of opinion that you're trying to resolve. That is politics.
Yeah.
Right. So what would happen, and I can imagine a scenario where, you might have a client that is basically pushing you to get something done. Okay. Yeah. And this is what you call scope creep. The client will pay you ₹1, try to get 10 rupees worth of work done. Sometimes, right? Not all clients are like that, but sometimes it happens. So in which case, then your organization has to kind of look at it and say, well, no, I'm not going to be doing that. So because, if I give you this additional thing, now you're going to make me do 20 rupees worth of work. right? So there are other concerns that come into play in there. And so that is where sometimes organizations do not do it. But largely, I tend to believe that most clients are good guys, right? I mean, nobody is out there to kind of mess with somebody. Everybody is trying to succeed in their life by themselves, right?
Correct.
So I think the opportunity is to understand the larger picture, understand, talk to your business leaders, talk to the folks who are kind of dealing with the client and understand the environment before you can kind of go propose anything else.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Yep. Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks, Parmeshwaran. Go ahead, Apurva.
Yeah.
Can't hear you. Your audio is not coming through. No. Yep. I think. No. Something happened and then, yeah.
Okay. Can you hear me
Yes.
now?
Yes.
Maybe there is some issue with the mic. Okay, so I'm very new, like I'm still learning. So this is kind of overwhelming. I'm trying to absorb all the information, but I'm not exactly, getting all of it, maybe because of the lack of the experience. So I just want to know if there is any documents or is there any other thing which I can read before the next presentation so I can get all or relate to all the information.
Yeah. So, Saurabh, can you look up do we have a design systems thing on Medium? We have actually published this whole reading material online. And I would recommend, this is an interesting challenge when you're doing design systems. It's like the hot topic, right? And everybody and their grandfather claims that they know design systems, which is why, depending, and it is possible that, some other designer may be talking about it. It may look like they're talking something completely opposite to what I'm talking, but really we are saying the same thing in a different way, right?
Yeah, I have
so
said,
when you,
sorry.
So when you're starting off, my advice is that, just read a couple of things that will help you understand how design systems work. Okay. So we have this one article. So Saurabh, if you can just copy and paste the design systems article, that will be great. Then there's this other document that there are 3 documents that I suggest, right? So the first 2 are mandatory for everybody who wants to be a designer. So there's a look up Google. Give me a second. I'm gonna open a new tab. Okay, 1 second. I'm going to share my screen. So are you able to see this?
Yes. Oh, material
Okay.
design.
Yeah. So this is what is the Google ka and iOS ka. Usually every year and a half, they will publish new standards. Okay. And I want every designer to be aware of this stuff, right? How they approach it. Okay. So just look at this overview, how they do it, right? So what is the layout? What is the philosophy? All this stuff they'll give you, right? Layout, understanding layout, pixel density. So this stuff they will give you upfront. And this is actually one of the gold standards for design system. Literally the material design guideline is a design system in itself, right? So I would say, you get all of this stuff. Then they not only that, they do usability testing on any widget that they will recommend to you.
Okay.
Okay. So they will tell you like, okay, what are the usability elements? How do you kind of play with it? 1 second, let me just, how do you think through it and all that stuff? How do you do sound design, about sound, applying sound to UI? So you have a lot of these, and then hero sounds, what are the different kinds of sounds, right? Hero sounds, use case, notifications, system sounds, ambient sounds. They have actually thought about every little widget and they've kind of defined it, including how to do a Dropbox, checkbox and all that. So just, I don't need you to memorize it, just go and familiarize it. Okay, itna sara sikha hai, right? This is what you would expect. So this is the breadth of it. Okay. Now, to understand, just to also put it in context, the guys who came up with material design is probably a team that's probably got like 10-15 years of experience, and these guys have like a lot of experience under their belt and they're doing it at this level of detail. Okay. So with somebody with a year's worth of experience, you would not be able to do it. So you would do a lighter version of it. Okay. So what I'm trying to teach you is, okay, this is where you want to be ideally. Okay. But how do you get from where you are to where you want to be? So we are telling you the intentions, the way to think about it. And then you just take a design system and you apply it. That's all you have to do.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the second one is iOS design guidelines. Okay. So you have this, which is actually the human interface guidelines. Okay. So these guys will have exact similar stuff, including touch screens and all that stuff, right? So this will kind of give you a sense. And again, when you're starting off, you don't need to create your design systems. Okay. Just be familiar with what is out there. And these two are good enough.
Okay.
Okay. Then, and then from there, you can, go and then let's see article. Yeah. So there's the articles, visual style guides or text box mein dala hai. This is another like very simple read and all that. And then once you do that, then you kind of understand how to kind of go about it.
Okay. Thank you so much. I just don't want to feel left out again tomorrow. So I want to make sure that I have some information so that I can relate to it.
No, Apurva, I think I think you're doing a really good job, right? And there's a lot of people that have come in not knowing anything and they've kind of learned, right? So there's no shame in saying I don't know because everybody was in your place at one time. Okay.
No, I have just started, so I'm not familiar with all the concepts. So for 1 minute, I thought maybe I have rushed into this training, but then it's okay. Maybe I'll get experience later and I can share my doubts earlier. So that is also
absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Ask any question. Koi problem nahi hai. Koi tension nahi hai.
Sure. Thank you.
Cool. Awesome. Go ahead, Praneeth.
Hi, sir. So it's actually something related to the communication between your client and like we have a client with whom we have an issue, like the design system. The design team of this, like the UX designers out there, they are able to understand like what we are coming up with, and they are able to relate with us, and they are ready to go with it. But when the PMs step in, so the scene changes, and it's like even if we propose them certain new ideas, basically they are like, yeah, you have to do something radical all the time. They say that, but if we come up with a radical change, they will ask like, yeah, why are you going that much radical? Because people won't be used to this particular theme of things. So that's what is happening, and we are really in a confused state, and it is actually extending our timeline. So is there any advice that you would like to give me? Like,
see, you have to understand where that concept of radical comes in. Okay. When you go to a company that wants to work with you, the CEO will come and say, I want to be a design-centric company. Kahin se Stanford mein kahin na kahin kuch pad ke aake full josh mein hoga, right? Then he will say, I want to create the next Tesla, right? That is the grand plan. This person has said it, and I want radical designs. I want us to lead the market, right? Sab kahani bol diya, right? Now it goes down to, and this is exactly what happened. It goes down to the product manager, right? Because now you are engaging. It's a political issue. It is not an issue of your creativity. Okay. So now what that person will say, okay, now I'm out of the room. I'm introducing you to my product manager. He's going to, or my VP of engineering, he will take the conversation. The VP of engineering will come. Okay, I'm going to introduce you to my head designer and my head product manager and my head engineering guy. You take the conversation forward, right? And the VP of engineering also leaves. Okay. Or the VP of product will also leave. So now you're working with two mid-level guys, right? What is their biggest worry at that point?
Maybe
ship karna.
Yeah.
Right. That is their biggest worry. Mereko ship karna. Right. Now you have heard what the CEO said. Arey, radical. Wo you are now excited about radical. Right. Now you go ahead and do radical stuff. You give it to the product manager. Product manager will show it to the engineering guy. Engineering, kaun karega yaar? This will take 5 months. Right. Then the product manager will come back and say, don't make it so radical, man. Right. They'll say, okay, simplify karte. Then they'll simplify. So ultimately the product will get done or whatever, everything is done. Then the product manager will say, okay, now everything is done. We are happy. Now present it to the CEO. Okay. Now you go to the CEO and the VP of engineering will also be sitting there. You'll say, The CEO will say, "Arey, I told you to do radical. What is this? The same as everything else." Right?
Yeah.
So the problem here is not your creativity. The problem is that the person who has the vision is not the person you're discussing with or negotiating with. You understand?
Yeah.
And the second problem that is happening is the time lag in communication, because you will probably work 1 or 2 months in talking to the guy at the lower level, right? And then when you talk to the guy at the top, it's already 2 months are gone. Now the guy is like frustrated because like, you've given me the same work, right? He doesn't think that, and when that happens in front of the CEO, the product manager and the engineer will keep quiet. Right? Because I didn't do it, right? So this guy only submitted, this guy is presenting it. That's why they're making you present it.
Absolutely, yeah. So actually, that is happening with me. Actually.
It happens all the time. It happens all the time. So the trick there is that you need to escalate this problem. Okay. You need to have regular check-ins. So I know we used to have one of our members, Sarthak. Okay. He's probably not here. I'm not sure. If Sarthak, if you're here, just say yes. But you know, I put him into an internship, and I would talk to his boss, is the CEO of the company, on a regular basis. Initially, say, yeah, Sarthak is good. Sarthak is good. He'd be all excited. Okay. Then after a while, I would talk to him like, I don't know what Sarthak is doing. I don't know what his quality is. I'm like, what is going on here? And I talk to Sarthak. Sarthak, what is going on? Sarthak is like, man, I'm doing amazing. My product managers love me. My engineers love me. I'm doing amazing. There's a huge delta. The CEO doesn't think you're doing a good job, right? The product manager thinks you're doing a great job. Well, there's a problem. You know? So then what we did was I sat down for a debrief session with him. What are you doing? Right? He says, see, the CEO came and told me, then the CEO went to the US. So then I'm working with the product managers and all that. I'm like, see, the CEO gave you the idea. The CEO communicated everything to you, right? Why are you not talking to the CEO? Did the CEO say, don't talk to me? Right? So the CEO has no visibility about what you have done. Right? So finally, when the final evaluation goes, CEO does not believe that you did a good job. Right? So I said, set up a meeting with the CEO, do a review there, even if you've done with the product manager and the engineer. Okay, done. The next thing I hear from the CEO, they go, this guy's got great future. Right? So the point I'm trying to communicate is you have to solve it from that. You need to have face time with the leader, he says, who said, I want creativity. Right? FaceTime with that leader on a regular basis is what is going to change, because you have to manage these guys, right? Because they're looking at how much work they have to do, right? And nobody is wrong in this game, but you have to manage the communication and expectations at an organizational level.
Absolutely. So what was happening is, as you told, the top level management team, they had a discussion with us. Maybe that time period was around, you know, they have a time lag of 2 months. Every 2 months they come to us, maybe the CEO, CTO, everyone. So after that, we are having a conversation with the director of that product. So she's basically the head of all the PMs. And that also happens maybe 1 week or 2 weeks. We have a time gap between that. So in between, some product managers come and they say like, yeah, why you are creating so much change here? So why are you coming with this solution? But when we have the talk with the main leader, like the director, she will be like, yeah, I already gave you the go to, you know, you can do all the radical changes. So they're like, we also felt like they don't have that proper communication, or they are having some issues, but that is actually affecting our work. So we and it is a very complex product, I'll be frank. So time to time changing the same stuff that you have been doing, and you're coming up with a better solution, and again you have to go back to the 0th level. So that is actually affecting our work. So
it's a communication problem. You need to solve that communication issue.
Yeah.
Right. If you solve that, then it will work.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Chalo, bye, Krati. So I think we'll also drop off because there's no other questions. So thank you very much, guys. You've been an awesome audience. I'll talk to you later. Bye.